This is my first roll of slide film I ever shot on medium format back in the mid-2000s. It's beautiful to look at. You don't even need to print it, just backlight it and stare. This was from a brief love affair with not just any camera, but one that shoots 6x7 negatives. It wasn't my camera, and I had to let her go, but my God, I wanted her back. I have a bunch. I have too many film cameras, but I've always wanted a medium format SLR. Something like that, baby. I've played around with a few, including a Hasselblad 500cm, which is sort of like the ultimate medium format camera. And although it's beautiful, it's a work of art, I always thought about those slides that I took on the 6x7. Every time I pulled them out, I fell back in love. Back when I was first starting out in photography, a great photographer named Clay loaned me his RZ67. I'm Canadian, I say the word Z, I'm sorry, I don't say Z. The RZ or RZ67 was a fixture of the last era of film photography, especially when it came to like commercial studio fashion film work. It dominated from the 90s to 2000 as a tank of a camera, and I immediately put the RB67, the fully mechanical precursor, on my wish list. And now my nephew is a photographer and very much into film cameras like I am, so he had been keeping an eye out, and finally a great deal popped up on Marketplace and we went in halvesies. Buying this camera reminded me of its one major downside, and that is that it is a beast. It is huge. Look at it compared to my Yashica TLR. From this view, yeah, it's a little bit wider, but really take a look at the difference in size of these cameras. And this size difference is only for 1 extra centimeter of image size, and that's only in one dimension. Part of the reason of the size difference is that this camera can rotate its back, so you can shoot portrait or landscape photos without turning the camera on its side. With a camera like a Hasselblad or a TLR, like this TLR, it is shooting a square image. So to gain that centimeter in both dimensions and have it rotatable, it enlarges the whole package. This camera to me feels almost like twice the size and volume of a Hasselblad. It does feel like twice the size and volume of this for sure. And that's the reason this camera, if you look it up, is called a studio camera. But it wants to live on a tripod. All of these extra mechanics take up space, but I take that on as a challenge. As a very large human myself, this camera feels like a decent size for me, right? No? No? Please help me justify this purchase. Say it looks so good on me, please. But I didn't just buy the camera for the workout. What I love about medium format is, of course, the size of the negative. As nice of an image as you can get out of an iPhone, I like to explain it like this. Taking a shot on a small sensor camera is sort of like trying to see the world through a peephole. Shooting on a medium format or a larger format camera is sort of like just opening the door. The optics change too. If you think of a standard lens, sort of like a 50mm lens on a full frame camera. But if you wanted a similar field of view on a smaller sensor camera, a crop sensor, you're essentially cropping into that 50mm lens, so you need a wider lens to make up for it. So as your sensor or film gets smaller, you need a wider lens to have the same perceived field of view as a 50mm lens on a full frame 35mm camera. The opposite though is true when you move up to medium format. This camera has a 90mm lens, and it gives you the same, roughly same perceived field of view as a 50mm lens on a standard full frame camera. But I say perceived field of view because it's not exact and there are lots of things changing. So everyone loves shallow depth of field, and if you ask a photographer what can give me shallow depth of field, their first reply will usually be aperture, a wide open aperture, an f1.2 lens. But a lot of people don't understand that focal length has an equal impact on depth of field. So when you go to a wider lens with a smaller sensor camera, you get more depth of field. Your background is more in focus. As you use a longer lens, your depth of field gets shallower. That's why the first time I saw a portrait on an 85mm lens at f1.2, my head almost exploded because of the soft background blur. The bokeh almost got me. That was a close one. So blurry. You don't even know. And then you try medium format. So as you go up in film or sensor size, you need longer and longer lenses to get the same field of view, and your depth of field gets shallower and shallower until you are swallowed into a world of bokeh where you get sucked in and there is no coming back. You will become one with the bokeh. You will live amongst the bokeh balls, and you will intermarry with bokeh women or men or whatever gender bokeh is. And you will start a bokeh family. You will become one with the bokeh, and you will live inside light. But shallow depth of field is not the candy it once was for me. Once you get over the sugar rush, a different aspect starts to come out. I just call presence. There is a presence to everything you photograph in a medium format camera that is simply not there on smaller cameras. Everything just feels a little bit more monumental. Being able to get a subtle background separation on a subject you're shooting full body is fantastic. So if there is one other drawback to these cameras, they are slow. They like light. The widest aperture on this lens in particular is f3.8. When I look at my TLR camera, an f3.5. Part of the reason why they're in a studio environment where you're shooting with strobes and you have as much light as you need. What I love about these cameras is being able to shoot at f8 and still have a really great shallow depth of field. I should stop talking and show you some pictures, but first we need to get this camera into shooting shape. What has happened over the years in pretty much every old camera is that the light seals have rotted. They're little strips of foam inside the doors that keep light out from your film. If you throw film in and you run through a roll, you probably won't notice it, but if it hangs around, you leave it in your car and the sun's right on it, you might start to get light leaks on your film. And the way to solve this is through changing the seals. I looked at the seals, they're all gummy, gooey foam, so we scraped out all the old foam with toothpicks and alcohol, and then used a replacement kit to cut little strips of foam and to get this camera sealed up like new. It's really easy to change your light seal, and you can even get away with $1 sheets of sticky foam you would get at any craft store. Tools that I recommend that help make it really easy is obviously a cutting mat. Instead of an X-Acto knife or a utility knife, a rotary cutter. So I'll put some links in the description, but take a look at your local surplus liquidation store. The liquidation store I was at just 2 days ago had both really high quality cutting mats and rotary blades. A trick I learned on YouTube while I was actually changing the seals on this camera was to put the strips, the sticky strips, soak them in alcohol. It deactivates the stickiness so you can get the foam strips down these thin little channels, which is a nightmare when they grab onto the side and don't even make it to the bottom and you're just a sticky mess. It's hard because this thing. Turn them towards me. Okay, go back to this side. Sure. So, do I love the RB67? Yes, I do love it. Is it large? Yes, it is. I am statistically larger than most people on the planet. So the camera doesn't seem too crazy for me, but if you are on the opposite spectrum, the camera might feel a little bulkier. Maybe you want a little TLR, something that you can like carry around every day and it can sit in your side bag. It just pops in and out. This might be a better choice for you if you're just looking to get into medium format film. But for me, I had a bucket list, wish list, 6-7 camera. I got what I wanted. Jesse gets what he wants, and I love it. Can I see myself slipping this in my little side bag and taking it on the subway? No, it is a monster. But I can see myself sticking it on a tripod and hiking around with it and throwing it in the trunk on a blanket so it doesn't get banged around, and taking some really great landscapes or portraits. Something a little bit more planned. If I was walking around town, I might take something like this, but chances are I will just take this. So if you're new to film, definitely start here. There are lots of these cameras. If you find an opportunity to get a medium format camera, these are great. What I recommend is next time you're in the city, I live in the country, so when I go into Toronto, I visit a store called Downtown Camera where they have a wall of used cameras, and I can basically hold every one of these cameras and I can see what feels right and not necessarily buy it there unless the price is right. Save a search on Facebook Marketplace so that when a great deal on the camera you're looking for pops up, you can grab it. I'm a big fan of trying to not give in to impulsive purchases. All of these came to me through very serendipitous means. I got this one at an estate sale. This one was actually gifted to me about 15 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago. He heard I was into photography and said, hey, can you use this? And it is my favorite little camera. Long story short, your perfect camera will find you. And then your next perfect camera will find you, and then your next perfect camera will find you, and so on. And it is a slippery slope, and then you will drown in cameras that you don't have any time to shoot with. Grab an old camera, change the seals, and then get distracted by your next perfect camera.